Okay, great. We are live now. Let me just share my screen and then we can start. So is the screen visible and am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's start without much ado. Today is the second part of the financial investment journey. So along with my MPG participants, this is one thing that I always do at the end of my paid group, usually in the last 15, 20, 30 days. So I invite other people to actually join in this webinars, and those who attended last time and posted their feedbacks and takeaways, they got the link today again to be with me in this session on Zoom. But yes, those who attended and didn't even care to put up their feedback or even the take-home point for the colleagues, they're not been given the link. But yes, another option has been created in the form of a link given in just now in the WhatsApp group. So they can visit the page today. The session is happening on my own page itself. So all my presentations always begin with thanking the Lord Almighty who's given me much more than what I deserve. And when it comes to finance, I have to thank my dad also, who has been instrumental in teaching me the clinical part of finance. Because without that, I would have been actually nowhere in my financial journey otherwise. So this is my brief CV. You all are aware of it by now. So this is the courtesy, the dual specialization from IGNOU that I'm speaking in front of you. So today's journey is financial investment journey part 2. So what we'll be discussing, I'll be giving a few eye openers. And yes, the journey begins in the second gear now. We'll be shifting the gears. And yes, as I promised, portfolio construction begins in today's webinars. But yes, if you are looking for the word portfolio, you may not find it except once or twice in the presentation. But surely the journey is today related to this topic only very, very clearly. So let's start with a few questions as usual, as I started in the previous one as well. So why is investing important and where should we invest? Again, the where means the portfolio only. So that is the point you need to actually have a better understanding of. So it is basically investing is like allocating your money towards assets in the hope of making your future better. There have been innumerous times discussion made about the retirement planning, about your future when you wouldn't want to literally beg from your kids. You should have your own corpus ready because you will not be having or withdrawing any pension also, at least majority of us. So investments are made with the view of earning returns, and which actually will grow your investment to a higher sum. So do always invest, because that is the only short way which way you can achieve your goals. And of course, you can make your future better in one way or the other. And also by making investments, we are saving and accumulating side by side for the rainy day, for the emergency period, for such period where we might not have good enough finances for that reason. So always it'll instill a kind of a financial discipline. What exactly, if somebody asks me what is the most important thing in financial journey, if I have to reply in one word, I would say discipline. You have to be disciplined towards your investments. There are no two shortcuts about that. So we need to be very sure that investment is and should be done. That is why the Warren Buffett quote is invest first, or rather save first, then spend, because that is the key that holds to long term of corpus being generated or the wealth creation being done at our end. So a few factors which will actually affect or will have an importance towards the inflation part. So it is actually inflation is the surge in the price of materials and services. We all know price बढ़ जाता तो हम लोग बोलते क्या हो गया, पिछले साल इतना price था. So what is this? So this is basically nothing but inflation. So you need to understand that inflation will decrease the worth of your money, decrease your purchase power, and increase the cost of the necessities and your other things that you're going to buy. So when there is a rise in inflation, you have the same money, you will buy lesser things. And fortunately or unfortunately, I would say, we have no control over the inflation rate. And it only knows one direction, the skyway. It rarely comes down. Again, the government figures might come down, but in actuality, the costing rarely comes down unless or until it is, say, being grossly overpriced, and then it does correct itself. But then if you have to stay ahead of inflation, you need to have more money to actually purchase the same. So, but again, you need to remember, the money does not grow on its own. If it has to grow, it has to earn returns. And for it to grow, you should have a few vehicles of growth which are there, which should be there, and which are manageable for everyone. So, and for earning those returns, the vehicle needed is investment. There are various vehicles of investments as well. So investments are actually the best way to tackle inflation. So why the concept of inflation is important? Because if your money is not growing beyond inflation, then you are actually losing the worth of your same money which you have stored with you. We talk of inflation eating into certain things. Yes, I discussed in the part 1 that there are various scenarios when the inflation figure actual might be 10, but otherwise the figures hover around, the government figures are around 3.4 to 5.5 usually. But at the time of first session on that day particularly, the inflation figure shot up to 6.3 or 6.4 on that day. So I'm taking it on a higher side just to give you an example. Again, the same has been conveyed by me to you in the form of rule of 72 as well. So how will the inflation reduce the worth of rupees 1 lakh? So see, after 8 years, if you have 1 lakh in hand, after 1 year, 8% eats into it, you have 92,000 of worth of money. The same money if it is not invested. So after 2 years, the figure goes down. So after 8 years, at the end of 9th year, the amount roughly becomes half. So by the rule of 72 also, 72 divided by 8, in 9 years, your amount is doubled or halved, accordingly, whether it is growing or depreciating via inflation or via, say, investment. So roughly around half. Obviously, we would say that practical scenario does not happen. See, you have to understand that this phenomenon of having your money works as per your government inflation figures and not as per your actual figures. Your cost of living works on other parameters. जब मैं बोलता हूँ कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग बढ़ गई, आपकी इन्फ्लेशन 10% है, that is in actuality, that thing does not apply to this diagram. This diagram is affected by government figures only. So what I would want to say here is that, for example, the government figures were around 5 or so for inflation. If you divide it by 70, roughly in 14 years, your money would be halved. But if that is 6, it will be halved in 12 years. Remember, this is the key variant. Some financial advisors will actually show you this chart and tell you in a way that देखो आपकी cost of living कितनी हो रही है, आप आज लाख रुपए का खर्चा कर रहे हो, 8 साल बाद आपके इतने पैसे हो जाएंगे. So this is the way sometimes a miscommunication is there. Yes, the difference is drastic. Sometimes the government figures are saying 5%, your actual cost of living is 10%, almost double. So you don't know which one is correct. So if you are pertaining to the amount of money going in value, down in value, it will go as per the government figures only. But otherwise, how much money you need next year would roughly be around 10% or 10% plus. I'm skeptical of the coming times when the unlock fully happens and we become COVID free and our normal life, vacation life, mall life, movie life, our splurging the money, our dining out lavishly, our parties happening, our weekend culture coming back. Yes, it will come back surely, but those things happening and they start acting, applying their say magic or their say fangs, if I say not the magic but the fangs, on the already inflated money life that we are living with just the needs in hand. इस वक्त हम सिर्फ नीड्स पे जी रहे हैं, most of us, and except exceptions aside, because unlock is starting happening, maybe a couple of dinner ordering is happening, that is fine. But otherwise, the malls have started to open up. The vacation Himachal just opened up, and there was a Sunday, there was a figure 7,500 vehicles crossed on Sunday itself. I would believe 75% of that would be Punjabis from my state only, because Delhi people usually go from there to Mussoorie and Dalhousie usually. But then what I mean to say is that when these things open up fully, and if this correction of the current pricing, for example, a need based thing like a latex or a nitrile glove, which we are paying 6 or 7 times the cost, the nitrile even beyond that. So if that thing is not corrected and the wants cost is added, then मुझे वो figure जो मैं बोलता हूँ ना, हर साल आपकी cost of living 10% बढ़ती है, I will have to readjust that figure to 15%, unless the need correction happens. Otherwise, if the things blow out of proportion, this thing will actually really be a very big one, and will be very detrimental on our savings part. So always important to earn inflation beating returns, so that we can actually make savings for our future. So what are the type of investments? Let's see them, because we have numerous investments to choose from. People say, yaar, itni investments mein kis mein karu? I get confused. So this is your first step towards portfolio construction. As I mentioned at the start, probably the portfolio construction word, or just the portfolio word, would be visible only in this slide and nothing in the next 60-65 slides from here. So you will have numerous options to choose from. But then your requirements, risk profile, which I discussed in the previous session, like it is a continuity. Who have attended those only people would only be able to actually appreciate that thing better in that regard. So if you assess your risk profile better accordingly, what your needs and demands are, what your situation is, what actually does happen in your practice sojourn, what happens in your personal life as such, this is the thing that actually decides that, and how you invest. So investments are broadly actually into active and passive investments. Active means you continuously be very dynamic in your approach, continue to make changes in your portfolio depending upon market and economy developments. You have the time, you have the knowledge, you have the skill, and you indulge in that. So one of the active investments is the equity investments. Equity investments, I mentioned the stocks over here. So on the other hand, passive do not need to be active or hands-on all the time. You invest your money, stay invested for a certain duration of time. And it is kind of a buy and hold strategy as well. So this is particularly for those who say we cannot devote much time outside our clinic. So that is the reason you need to understand. So active investment, what is the difference between these two? As per suitability, so active people would have an understanding of the finances. Passive is for almost everyone, even those who don't understand, or maybe who can rely on any of the financial advisor as well. Then the cost of investment is higher in active, because you frequently make a purchase and selling, or the buying or the say trading part. But in passive, you buy and hold, so the costs are lower as such. The risks involved, obviously, when there is a chance of profit, there is a chance of loss as well. So higher chance of say risk involved of both profit and loss in the equity market. And then in passive, it is a lower one. Obviously, return, if it is a higher risk, then the return also would be higher. But in passive, the returns can be lower also. So you have to decide whether you want to hold on to an active strategy or passive one after you assess your requirements and risk tolerance level. I discussed about risk tolerance level in the previous one. Somebody would not have a risk tolerance of even 10,000. Somebody would even say, yes, I can bear a loss of even 2 lakhs. So you decide what actually suits you. So what are the popular investment options in India? For the sake of focus, I have tried to actually limit these to 7 investment options, which will again have a mixed kind of a thing, which you can invest. Again, a handmade manual or a recipe kind of a thing for people who are starting or who are just skeptical to start, or maybe just waiting for the right time. Probably your right time has arrived today. So luckily it is a Friday today. Go over the presentation, understand the basic things, ponder over it, sleep over it over a Saturday and a Sunday, and Monday begin your journey if you haven't already done so. So these are the major 7 investments that happen in India, all combined. Yes, there are many others also, but we don't need to bother about that. Equity, stocks, the National Pension System, the PPF, Public Provident Fund, the EPF, Employee Provident Fund, the recurring deposits, the fixed deposits, and of course, the king in the center, mutual funds. So these are the 7 investments, and I'll just brief you in little about the risk potential and other things over here. So what exactly is a direct equity? So direct equity is like investing in stocks. It is one of the most potent investment vehicle. When you buy a stock, you actually are a shareholder in the company. You become a part of the company. You are investing in company's growth and development. But then remember, you need to have good time, good knowledge to actually venture into this territory, because it is not a speculation based investment. You can't make just tukka, and maybe occasionally you might be successful also, but it is one thing which will require a good amount of time, dedication, and knowledge. And if you don't have either of the same, then don't jump into this practice sojourn of vehicle. Then stocks can be bought or sold through all the recognized stock exchanges, NSE, BSE, and other ones. And anyone who has a demat account, has a KYC done, he can do that. So these, again, stocks also may be a long-term investment. Sometimes I got inherited a lot of stocks from my dad, which he bought in the 80s, 1980s. So remember, 40 years old stocks. Yes, I no longer indulge in active trading. I stopped it almost 3 or 4 months before my dad's death. So a conscious decision on my part, because again, with increasing age, you always bear that the risk potential in your mind decreases. So I have actually done that deliberately, and I have no regrets about that as well. So then in this stock part of the equity part, you have to actively manage. Again, you have to be very aware of all the global changes happening. Market, as I mentioned in previous session also, it is a sentiment driven thing. We just saw an ad, Ronaldo, while giving an ad, जो press conference करते ना, कोक की bottle उठा के पानी की bottle उठा ली. He said water. He never said coke मत पियो. He said water. And coke lost 4 billion in 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours of trading. The net worth came down by 4 billion. Does that stock market depend upon one Ronaldo? No, it is a sentiment driven thing. So you need to understand that these things have a big influence. And if you are doing a complicated extraction or a long crown prep or implant surgery in your practice, and you or either market गिरनी शुरू होती है और आपने buying और selling करनी है, you can't leave the patient in the way. And unfortunately, the trading happens from 9:30 to 3:30, or maybe 9:15 to 3:30, and that is mostly the peak time for us in the clinic. So you need to understand, if you can do that, surely go ahead. But if not, don't do it. Don't do it only on the basis of speculations. And one thing you need to understand, the returns are not guaranteed. And always the risks are there, and risks are on the higher side for the loss as well. So then the second most common investment, which have been gaining in the past few decades, getting popular amongst the millennials like us, but more so in the previous 3 to 4 months, there has been a huge inflow from the youngsters in the mutual fund market. Mutual fund is basically like a big pizza. You buy a small slice of that pizza. Many other people are also have bought that, and all that amount is invested in various exposures depending upon the type of fund. That pooled sum, whichever is collected, the whole sum of the pizza, is actually managed by a finance professional whom we call as a fund manager, who invests in various securities, various assets, and then generates returns for all the investors. खुद भी खाता है, बाकियों को भी खिलाता है, all through basis of commission and returns. So just to broadly tell you, again, this is a basic session. So I would like to again divulge a little bit on the basic part. Mutual funds are broadly equity, debt, and hybrid. Hybrid are also called as balanced funds. So equity basically invests in stocks and blue chips and equity rated instruments. The debt usually do in the fixed securities like the bonds, papers, or even the fixed government G-Secs. So the hybrid funds are the balanced ones. They do a mixed one in that. So you might be seeing a lot of balanced advantage fund and all those from Kotak and other mutual fund companies doing going ads these days on the national television. So these are vehicles very flexible in nature, where you can begin and stop as per your convenience. And anyone can invest in mutual funds starting as low as rupees 500 per month. Just again, you don't need a demat account always for that. Also, you can directly say invest in the companies through the direct mode also. You don't need into that. Again, I won't be going much deeper, just about from the basic part. As I promised you, you will have 15 videos of 5-6 minutes each, which roughly makes it 1.5 hour of webinar on the 30th June itself. The videos will, all short videos will go online one after the another after 1 hour each, starting from 7 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. in the night. So 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. You'll get 15 videos in the day only on mutual funds on 30th of June. It is my dad's second anniversary, death anniversary. So I would dedicate this presentation, these mutual fund videos to him only for that reason. So again, for mutual funds, you don't need much time or much knowledge to actually invest. Fund manager takes care of these aspects. Yes, for direct funds, maybe a little bit of monitoring, maybe 20-30 minutes in the morning, not daily. Also, sometimes you actually let the things grow and consolidate. So, but then you also need to understand that there might be some risky mutual funds as well, like small caps or the say unbranded ones, which we can call sometimes, which actually promise higher return but come with a higher risk as well. So again, even in those cases, sometimes the returns are not guaranteed. And always remember the word, the conversation, the ad, which is between Rohit Sharma and Shreyas Iyer, Indian cricket team members. So note that past performance of a fund does not indicate its future returns. And that is one thing people need to understand very, very clearly, because this is one thing which people believe कि ये जो fund 10 साल से दे रहा है तो शायद वो आगे भी same ही देता रहेगा. It does not hold true for all the funds all the time. Then the third most common investment, which is still one of the most common investments of people who are elder in our family, our dads, our uncles, who are fond of this thing. They have seen the good times. FDs used to give 14, 15, 16% of returns. And I'm not talking much back, 2001 and 2 only. So it was a golden time. You getting so much returns. There was no TDS. There was no 10,000 limit. There was nothing. लोग रिपोर्ट भी नहीं करते थे. कैश में एफडी बन जाती थी, कैश में रिटर्न मिल जाती थी. ना आरबीआई को कुछ पता लगता था, ना बैंक को कुछ पता लगता था. लोगों ने जायदादों की जायदादें खड़ी कर ली फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट के बेस पे. तो जिन्होंने ये सब किया है, those who have done that, created wealth out of FDs, उनका दिल धड़कता है जब कोई मेरे जैसा बोल देता है ना कि एफडी इज यूजलेस, 2% रिटर्न देती है. दे लाइक, अच्छा रियली, ये जो तुम घर देख रहे हो ना मेरा, ये एफडी से बना है. People have this kind of a notion sometimes. So yes, it was true. Even I had FDs at 13-14% myself. I was investing small amounts at that time through my dad, of course. But I even remember those times. But people who have done that have a hard feeling letting go away their coveted blue-eyed boy, their Wagoner. Wagoner is usually the name given to the blue-eyed boy. So their coveted blue-eyed boy, which it had been for so many years, and they have seen it come to 4.9, 4.5, 4.8, or even 5.1 maximum. And after tax returns, almost pathetic. If you have to break premature, even more pathetic. So it is a thing which actually hurts them. अच्छी भली instrument होता था, FD बर्बाद कर दी मोदी ने. अरे मोदी ने कुछ नहीं किया. Inflation, deflation, all those instruments. When one instrument goes, the other will go down or go up accordingly. So accordingly, people used to deposit the sum and returns milti thi easily, a good amount as well. But now, no longer one of the favored instruments, at least not for me. Now it is a conservative investors approach. I believe it should never be even for the conservative investment as well. अगर 2% 3% return लेने तो saving bank में पड़ा रहने दो. That is what I advise. And they further feel pinched. ये तो आप मतलब you are throwing salt on our, or rubbing salt on our wounds. Not even rubbing, you are actually vigorously rubbing it. So don't do that sometimes. But yes, if that holds true for FD, there are no sentiments for anyone in the financial sector. You work by your top floor of the body and not by what lies on the left side of your chest. So you don't work with the heart. So definitely interest were lucrative, but now they are not. So again, FDs are locked in investments. You can premature break it, but you can take a loan against it if it is a bigger amount. But there is a variant also, which is known as a tax saving FD, covered under 80C as well, lock in of 5 years. But still, naam jo marzi badal lo, amount and the return means the total interest is fully taxable as per your slab. So you need to remember that. Then one of the brilliant instruments in the past, FD का छोटा भाई RD. And ये आप credit दे सकते हैं Mr. Arun Jaitley, late Mr. Arun Jaitley. Those who are dead, we shouldn't say something bad about them, but he was the one who actually brought RD under the net of FD as well. FD RD मिला के 10,000 से ऊपर इंटरेस्ट नहीं होना चाहिए साल में, नहीं तो TDS कटेगा. Trust me, I have grown my elder kids' wealth a lot through RD, and yes, it was giving a tad less than that in time from 2007 to 16. In 2016 itself, the RD became taxable. RD used to be tax free. FD was still taxable on the day one, but problem ये होती थी, लोगों को पता ही नहीं है, किसी ने बैंक को भी नहीं पता होता था FD का ब्याज दिया है. There was no centralized banking. There was no say core banking or say digitalization in computer in every bank. Nationalized में तो बहुत late आई है. So वो people used to escape that. But RD officially was tax free till 2016, till Mr. Jaitley brought it under the ambit of tax status. And trust me, गांव में, smaller cities, tier 3, tier 4 centers, RD used to be one of the favorite investments even for the class 4 workers, even for the small village town people. डाक खाने में RD खुलाइए 500 रुपए महीना, 100 रुपए महीना, 200 रुपए महीना. And trust me, it used to still give a decent amount of return. Almost like little less than FD, but not more than that, of course. But the culture of RDs, again, like FD, it has diminished a lot. Almost, except in the villages, and even that too in the post offices, nobody gets a RD done. So because the returns are even lesser than the FD and the taxability remains the same. So yes, it is again for the risk-free averse investors, I would say they are actually for nil. Then one of the important instruments, one of the cornerstones of investment in India, still partially it is for many like me as well. So I can say this is for the risk averse investment, because ये भी जब मैंने start किया था in year 99-2000. So my 15 plus 5 plus 5 is almost about to be over. Almost 25 years I am being invested into PPF. So the first investment is for 15 years. You can start as low as 100 rupees. A minimum of contribution of 500 is required in the year. So you can be assured that PPF ka paisa was guaranteed. And till date, even you can say this is one investment which is immune from all the even the law sector also. Bhagwan na kare, if you have an income tax raid on your accounts, they can't touch the PPF even then. So this is one amount which is immune from even the law as well. So I've done a webinar on it, the two wheels of investment, PPF and NPS. That video will be out shortly in 2-3 days time. I think 23rd or 24th, it will be online on YouTube. So do watch that. I've discussed this investment a lot in detail. So this investment returns keep on varying every quarter. Present rate is 7.1, and in 12 days time, it should touch 6.6, 6.7 as per the government revision, which is actually due. They actually did it on 31st March, but then it was dismissed as a oversight thing because the elections were happening in Bengal next day. So there are loans and withdrawal limits. All those aspects I've discussed in that webinar session, so I'm not going into much details of that. So you can watch that. Then the sixth is the employee provident fund. This is usually for the salaried people only, not for the self-employed. Again, similar to PPF, but in this, deductions are there where the employee gets a deduction of a salary, and the same amount is matched by the employer as well. The returns are tax-free, but now the VPF contributions have been started in the voluntary provident fund scheme. And yes, there are certain situations where you can say the government has set up a limit on PPF and EPF for the employees. I think it was raised to 5 lakh in the budget. Now it has been revised to 7.5 lakh in the budget. Any employee investing above 7.5 lakh combined PPF and EPF will have to pay a tax on the returns. So again, but still it is again one of the lucrative investments for the salaried people, and again one of the good ways to save tax. Then the seventh and the last instrument is the national pension system, new pension system, whatever you can call it, is the or the say the NPS commonly we call it. It is one of the tax saving option over and above the ATC, gives you 50,000 of rebate above your standard ATC under the section ATC CD 1B. So you have two kinds of account, tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is mandatory, tier 2 is optional. Tier 2 has undergone a change in the recent few months. Whose audio is on? Please unmute yourself. Whose audio is on? Dr. Pramod, please unmute yourself. It is a disturbance for all others who are listening. So investors who actually subscribe into the NPS will have to be logged in. The lock-in is absolute. If you want to withdraw, you can withdraw at the age of 60. You can continue up to 70 as well. There are proposals to actually raise it to 75 as well. Somebody can even join in at 60, as late as 65 now, and continue till 70. What you get at maturity is 60% amount is tax-free, and with the remaining 40%, you have to buy an annuity, which is going to give you a monthly pension. So NPS offers you plan. Again, they offer plans in equity as well. So the corpus is not entirely tax-free. The 40% which will give you pension will be taxable, chargeable as per your slab. But then there are revisions continuously happening. You never know, in later times, entire amount might become tax-free. As of now, somebody who had a corpus of 2 lakhs could withdraw the whole amount. Now that has been revised to 5 lakhs. So if your total contribution from age 20 to 60 is 5 lakhs or less than 5 lakhs, you can withdraw the whole amount tax-free, and there will be no annuity mandatory to be needed to be bought upon. So in now, just recently only, starting last fiscal, many government employees have to be compulsorily required to be subscribed to NPS, so that the government takes out its share of giving security to the employees in that sense. Yes, tier 2 has undergone a change recently, which I mentioned in the group as well. So even in those cases, you can invest like the tier 1, but there is no lock-in period. You can withdraw at any time, but the tax liability is applicable. Earlier it was for salaried, now it is for self-employed as well. So tier 2 works similar to tier 1 now. The only thing, it has no lock-in. You can take it anytime after T+1, T+2 days. T+2 means transaction happening plus 2 days के बाद आपके account में पैसा आ जाएगा, working days. If you did the transaction on a Friday, the money will come on Wednesday morning, because the Monday, Tuesday are the working days. So इतनी investments हैं. Of course, I have not mentioned the commodities, real estate. There are securities, bonds, and many other things as well. In the European culture or the US sector, there are 401k as well, the IRA as well. Of course, we are not concerned with those, so I won't discuss them. So people say, ये क्या करूं मैं? ये 7 investment तो ठीक है, पर मैं किस में डालूं? So what is the answer? ये करो आप. डालते जाओ. Start allocating. This is like a portfolio construction, which is happening slowly and steadily. You're contributing individually to each head. So this is one slide which is very powerful. If you try to get the meaning beyond it, how you actually slowly build up your wealth. The only key word, the only one word which actually governs this is discipline, which I mentioned. which is the single most important thing for this reason. So which investment option should you choose? Because there are so many vehicles. It is normal for you to get stuck. आपने बोल तो दिया सर कि risk appetite देखो अपना या बाकी चीजें देखो. I still can't make a decision. So if you're new to investing, it is very likely that we don't know where we should invest our money, and we can all make wrong mistakes. We can make financial losses. So always base your decisions on a few parameters that I'm going to give to you. Remember and understand those fully. Even for the beginners, you won't find a better ready-made recipe than this anywhere else. So the number one factor is age. I discussed 100 minus age and 80 minus age in the previous session. So you need to have a look at that session whenever it comes on YouTube and watch these in continuity. Many of people who know me, they know I structure and sequence in a particular way for the taste of the audience, for the learning of the audience, in a better way only. मेरे को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मैं किसी वे में भी रख सकता हूँ, but it is for your understanding. If you watch it in a sequence, you will learn more. If you just jump from 2 to 1 and 2 to 3 or 1 to 1, 3 to 1, you will still be learning something that won't be a particular sequence. So age is one of the important things because people would have lesser responsibilities. We would always say younger investments. Younger investors, I always say under 30 or maybe under 35 sometimes. They usually, because again, I'll go back to the economic life cycle of the dentist. Our business, our life is actually late than our other 10 plus 2 colleagues of say 10 plus 2 of arts and commerce stream. They start their life much earlier than us. They actually are into job, into marriage, into kids by almost 25 years of age. और हमारा यहाँ तक अभी तक पीजी एंड अदर थिंग्स भी 28 साल तक खत्म नहीं हुई होती हैं. एंड देन वी स्टार्ट विद लोकम, बीइंग असिस्टेंट, बीइंग एसोसिएट, प्रॉपरली लाइफ, प्रॉपर गुड इनकम आते आते 30, 31, 32 हो जाता है यूजुअली. सो इट इज ऑलमोस्ट अ डेकेड लेट. सो दैट इज वेयर अगर आप स्टार्ट ही 30, 31 पे कर रहे हैं तो यंग तो आप 35 तक रहेंगे ना कम से कम. So in that sense, we talk of investment in the young scenario, considering our economic life cycle is late in that regard. So when you have a long professional life and a whole life, otherwise personal wise also to manage, you need to understand that you need to keep increasing your investment as your income increases over time. I gave you the various say distributions of 5 lakh, how to go about that task in the previous one. So I won't be discussing those here. But when you grow in life, start contributing more to your investment. वो 5 लाख पे स्टिक करके नहीं रहना. या स्टार्टिंग में अगर आपने 2 लाख से स्टार्ट किया है with the tax saving mindset only, don't keep sticking to that. Look at the bigger picture and I'll show you a few slides pertaining to that. So equity mutual funds would be a better investment because they would come with a little bit of risk, but yes, the returns are again much better than that. They give as good as 12 to 15% minimum returns. So you need to really keep the age in your hand. But then older investors opt for avenues like FDs, which again, I will not prefer. People modify, people go into liquid funds, debt funds. Not a wrong approach. The approach should be to keep your money close to safety as well as you grow in stature. But then another school of thought says even as you go into retirement, 60 plus, normal people I'm talking, not the self-employed. Self-employed can retire anytime after 50, 55. I would say best age to retire is 55 for anyone amongst us who has built up his corpus. So if they say the new school of thought says even at 60 when you retire, some amount should be focused, or in the sense some amount should be of your portfolio should also focus to the equity. It has maybe 10, 20, 30%, but that is one thing you can actually think of doing that. So then the second part is the goal. Goals can be short term, long term. We need to understand that we need to have a very good idea of all those things. कि हमारे क्या milestones आने वाले हैं. I mentioned that day as well. Marriage, opening up the clinic, a new child into the family, child going to the school, bringing another child into the family, growth and expansion of the clinic. There are various milestones which keep on happening every 3 to 4, 3 to 5 years in every one of us's life. ये चीज कभी 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 रुकती नहीं है, कभी भी नहीं रुकती है. जब बच्चे सेटल हो जाते हैं तो उनकी शादी, उनकी एजुकेशन, उनकी शादी, उनके बच्चे, This thing will continue. We never ever actually get settled in life. It is a race that we keep on running. But yes, you need to understand that long-term goals and short-term goals have to be a part of your thought process when you're going to invest. And some goals can be negotiable and some can be non-negotiable. The non-negotiable ones are like your children's education. If you don't own a house, your down payment for a house, because you won't get 100% loan, and some guaranteed return investments can be a good choice for that. So you need to understand those things. But if the goals are negotiable, ki usko hum, like a world tour, which is supposed to happen in June 2020 for us, obviously the flights got cancelled, everything got cancelled, the COVID struck the world. So those things have been pushed back now. Even the tourist spots are not open. The world is still not a safe place. Just about UK, the third signs of third wave are appearing. The cases have started to go up. So there is a good amount of fear, also panic spreading in other parts of the world as well, because when it happened in UK, the other countries will engulfed as well. So those plans can be pushed back. So if you have invested for that and you have generated the wealth for those wants in your life, you can still keep that money in that safe place where it can keep growing. Probably आपने 2 destinations सोचे थे, पैसा grow कर जाएगा in couple of years, so you can go to 4 destinations. It is a personal choice then. We don't only live to serve others and feed others. We also live to enjoy life as well sometimes. Yes, lavishness and just splurging unendlessly or unusefully is not the thing that we should be targeting. But always make sure that you can still continue with the investments. If you meet your goal sooner, you can continue with those investments. I mentioned about various funds, also giving you examples in the session number 1. So then the profile. So what exactly is your profile? How are you earning? How many dependents in your family that you have? So that is very critical. So anyone having a lot of time in hand can not take equity risks for a long time if he has the dependents in his family to be taken care of. And if he does continue to take risks and loses some amount of money, the responsibility that he has to feed his family shall fall on other members. And if there are no other members, then they have to think accordingly. So your own situation, your profile also decides something. But someone who doesn't have dependents, even a steady income source, you can actually choose to invest in equities and earn higher returns in that sense. But then one shoe does not fit all. You need to remember that जिस फंड ने मेरे को रिटर्न दिए, जिस पर्पस के लिए मेरे पास था, शायद मैंने उसको 7 साल के लिए किया, 8 साल के लिए किया. आप बोलेंगे डॉक्टर भवदीप को मिला है रिटर्न 7-8 साल में, मैं भी डाल देता हूँ 4 साल में, मुझे उतना ना मिले, आधा तो मिलेगा कम से कम. नो, समटाइम्स मेरा वो 8 साल में अगर वो डबल हुआ सपोज, या 4 गुना हुआ इन 8 years, समटाइम्स वो डबल या थर्ड होगा 6th year 7th year में जाके. Then compounding takes over. Then it starts growing in that sense. So don't look at that part कि अगर आप मेरे फंड को half the time रखेंगे तो आपको उतनी रिटर्न आएगी. Remember, what you are gauging at me is again that statement of Rohit Sharma and Shreyas Iyer. Past returns. मैंने past returns लिए हैं. You are starting now with the same fund. So past returns will not guarantee you the future returns. So sorry. So always keep that in mind and choose carefully. So let's summarize all those investments which we have done, the 7 of them so far. So direct equity or stocks, it is an active one. The risk potential is very high. And obviously it has a great potential to beat inflation, and the risk is also very high. Mutual funds, both active and passive. You can manage yourself also. You can rely on a fund manager also. The returns are moderately high if we talk of all the funds in unison. Equity, hybrid, the index funds, all those funds, if we actually merge them and take the overall 1 point risk, it is considered as a moderately high. Again, potential to beat inflation is very high, and risk is again on the higher side. Fixed deposits, passive, return, ultra moderately low, I will say. Inflation, to beat inflation, it is an old slide, so it says high. I would say ultra low. Risk involved is absolutely no risk. So again, RD is working on the same principles as that. So provident fund, passive, return potential, I would say moderate now because it is at 7.1 now. potential to beat inflation, almost nil now. Risk involved, absolutely zero now. EPF, same as PPF. So NPS, active and passive, return potential, I wouldn't say moderately high, I would say high, simple high. Potential to beat inflation, high. And risk involved, less than moderate. Because it has undergone change now, you can actually allocate the percentage of your EEC and G funds bonds which are there in your portfolio of NPS. You can pick and choose the percentage of that. I've discussed all that in the PPF and NPS presentation. So you go through them. It'll be very a good eye opener for all of you. But what you need to remember is that NPS is currently, if we talk of the investments which are giving return, we never count stocks in that. Number one, we start from mutual funds. NPS is number 2 currently. It is standard giving returns between 10.5 to 11%, and it is not a small amount. Trust me. So where you believe your FDs are at 4.9 or 5.1, PPF is at 7.1, almost going up to 6.6 now. So the NPS giving 10.5 to 11% is a very, very good percentage in that regard. And trust me, so many colleagues are not even aware of it. They might be aware of it in a test, in a way that a tax scenario can be there, but otherwise they are not in that such. So how should you plan your investments? So always pick up the investment that fits your profile and your needs. So a few things that you need to keep in mind very, very clearly. Choose investments carefully after doing adequate research. And of the ones that I mentioned, you need to do a research for mutual funds only. You don't need to, this is a ready-made thing. You don't need to do much about it. You just have to choose active and passive in this, or maybe control the percentage of whatever you have in that regard. So choose your investments carefully after doing adequate research. We have a lot of data available. All those things are available. Don't fall for get rich quick schemes or quick buck schemes. Remember the ad between KL Rahul, Umesh Yadav, Ishan Kishan and Shahbaz Nadeem. तूने कभी सुना है 6 महीने में पैसे डबल हो जाएं, या तूने कभी 5 ओवर में डबल सेंचुरी मारी है? Remember that ad. So those are get rich quick schemes, also known as Ponzi schemes, which can offer you, promise you high returns in a short time, but ultimately they are not actually very good enough. So review your stock and your portfolio periodically. Periodically means at least 3 to 4 months. You should do that, and consider the tax implications. कि आप जो रिटर्न ले रहे हैं वो आफ्टर टैक्स क्या बनेगा? हम in the morning session we talk about the EBI TDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, or without amortization EBI TD. So here we have to consider after tax implication. मेरे को रिटर्न आई है, मेरे को उसको अपनी स्लैब के हिसाब से पहले मैं परसेंटेज माइनस करूं. If something is giving me 7% and is not tax free, I'm not talking of PPF here, I'm just talking of any return which is giving me 7% and I fall in the 30% bracket. So that would mean 7 into 3, 2.1. That investment is actually giving me 4.8 to 4.9 return. I've added the surcharge also. So effectively the 7% investment is giving me a 4.8 or a 4.9 return, which is not good enough. So you need to understand that अगर FD 5 है या बाकी चीजें उससे कम है या उसके अराउंड है, तो how much return are they are giving you. So always keep things simple and avoid complicated investments that you don't understand, like a Bitcoin. पता ही नहीं है, एलन मस्क आके कुछ बोल जाता है तो वो ऊपर चले जाता है, कभी नीचे चले जाता है. So don't fall for such investments, especially when those things are actually not legal in India as of now as well. Avoid those things. When there are so many simple things available, why do you want to complicate things? या तो हो गए ना आप बेसिक्स के बिताज बादशाह बन गए हो, then go for these things. But अगर बेसिक्स ही नहीं पता है लेकिन बिटकॉइन में करना है, स्टॉक्स में करना है, पता कुछ भी नहीं है, why do you want to be heroic? Just because you started late and you want to make up for the lost time, I'm sorry, you're doing a thing wrong. So the sooner you start, the better it is. The early age is always a bliss. We discussed about the Sudhir and the Randhir example in the session number 1, if you remember. So you should get started ASAP. There is no right time to start. The best time to start is today. So when it comes to investments, for me, time is money. We discussed about the time as being a big variant in compounding as well, in your growth as well. सब कुछ आप खरीद सकते हो, बैक ले सकते हो, इनकम विंडफॉल हो गई, क्लिनिक बूमा बम चलने लग पड़ा. The only thing which you can't buy back is time. You can't have a compounding advantage if you don't have time. So the best thing would be for you to start early. And if you don't start early, you have only one person to blame, yourself, and no one else. So the sooner you get started, the longer you stay invested, the more returns you earn on your investments. If you don't remember the Sudhir and Randhir example, I'm going to give you one more example. So suppose you invest when you started 25 years of age and you did till 58. Your brother, your elder brother started, who is already 35, he started along with you, but he is already 10 years elder to you. So he started late. So consider a scheme that you invest in one scheme. For example, similar to the Sudhir and the Randhir example, they also invested in one scheme. For the ease of calculation and understanding, I've given you a simple scenario where both of them are earning 10% in a year. So let's compare how their investments actually stack up. So at the age of 25, 1,10,000, considering I've added 10% return to that. Your brother starts at 35. So his 35 investment would be 1,10,000. So by that time, in 10 years, you would have already made 20 lakhs. Considering you have invested a principal of 10 lakhs or 11 lakhs now in the 35th year, and he has done 1 lakh only. So 11 lakhs has turned into 2038 and his one has turned into 110. And if you stay invested, both of you till 58, the corpus which you will be growing at 10% is 2 crores and 70 lakhs. And he would be growing just 97 lakhs. You can't buy back these 10 years. If this slide does not even shake you up, I'm sorry, nothing else will. Remember, the best time to start is today. I'm repeating it again. एंड मैं आपको बोलता हूँ डिसिप्लिन में करो. अगर डिसिप्लिन में करते रहोगे, आपने सिर्फ 1 लाख इन्वेस्ट किया है. 1 लाख इज नथिंग पर ईयर. स्टिल आपका कॉर्पस कितना बन गया? 2 करोड़. एंड ट्रस्ट मी, देयर आर पीपल रिटर्न्स व्हिच आर अबव 12 to 15% एज वेल. So understand, try to understand what I'm trying to give you a bigger picture by small examples. अगर इस वक्त आप साथ में क्लिनिक में काम कर रहे हैं या अपना कुछ और खोल के बैठे हैं, तो आई एम नॉट रियली श्योर whether things are going to your head or not. But if you're focused and listening to these things, I'm sure 110% you will get what I'm trying to say in this regard. So as you can see, the difference is huge, 97 lakhs versus 2.7 crores. So you earn way more than your brother because you started early. Your brother's investment horizon is shorter by 10 years. You unleash the power of compounding. आपका already 11 का 20 बन चुका था. You would say कि मैंने उससे 10 लाख ज्यादा डाला है, बट 10 लाख माइनस कर दो, 2 करोड़ 60 लाख रिटर्न फिर भी आई है. जस्ट कंपेयर. अगर उसने 50 20 35 50 23 लाख डाला है, 97 बना है, आपने 33 डाला है. इफ यू से 23 ऑल्सो रिटर्न वाइज 270 का 260 बन जाएगा, 10 निकाल दो. बट व्हाट यू कांट रिटर्न हिम बैक इज द टाइम दैट ही लॉस्ट. सो रिमेंबर, द सूनर यू स्टार्ट इन्वेस्टिंग, द बेटर इट इज फॉर यू. अब हम लोगों को चाहिए कि अब सर आपने बोला कि आज स्टार्ट करना है, मैं तो ऑलरेडी 38 का हो गया हूँ, 37 का हो गया हूँ, मैं लेट हो गया. अब मैं क्या करूँ? मेरे को सारे इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऐसे बताओ जिसमें मेरे को सब पे धांसू रिटर्न मिले. आई गेट अ बम्पर रिटर्न ऑन एनी ऑफ द इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. सब पे रिटर्न चाहिए? अनफॉर्चुनेटली नो, you can't. There are certain investments whose returns will not matter, or they should not matter also. So because all investments are not done with the basic intention or the sole intention of earning the returns, because certain investments may return matter nahi karegi, especially your own house. If you live in a rented one and you buy a house with slow EMIs, obviously paying from your own earned income only, you have cut down on your retirement planning and saved for your house. Ultimately, you build up one asset. If you reside in that property, obviously don't bother about that property ki ye property ne kitna return diya. Sir ke upar chhat is itself a big thing. So don't bother about such things. Then because having a own house is a dream for many of the, even the dentists I know. So again, अगर रिटर्न देखने की इसने कितना कैपिटल गेन दिया, अगर इसको हम ना खरीदते रेंटेड में रहते तो कितना, अगर इसको रेंट पे दे देते कितना रिटर्न आता, you can do that as well. So but then these things are not going to be discussed in that regard. I would say the any roof over your head is priceless. so you don't count the return over it. So this is one aspect that I discussed that day also, and I've been speaking on this aspect since the past 1.5 years. So emergency fund, yes, can happen. Loss can happen to anyone in one regard or the other. People will actually lose out on money, lose out on job, lose out on profession, lose out on patients like us, and we will have bad times. And the emergency fund actually saves us. 6 months of expenses or 3 months of gross income is what is advisable, and it is a good sum. But don't even look to earn much return over the emergency fund. The only key thing in emergency fund is that it should be easily accessible, at a click, at a distance. आज मेरे को पैसा चाहिए, कल मेरे को पैसा चाहिए, in 1 day or 2 days it should be available, maximum 1 or 2 days. It should not be beyond that कि मेरा पैसा लॉक इन है, हफ्ता 10 दिन लगेंगे, 15 दिन लगेंगे लॉक खुलने में, या whatever reasons. Don't do that. So this is the reason people ask me emergency fund कहाँ रखना है. तो मैं पिछले 1.5 साल से बोल रहा हूँ, always keep your emergency fund in your high earning saving bank account. This was the reason I told you to do so. We are not looking at earning return from that, but if that money is still giving you return in a high earning saving bank account like a 6 or a 7% bank account, what is wrong in that? You are still earning out of it and the money is still accessible. This was the prime reason that I gave you. Yes, people will say, differ with me, they'll say liquid fund में डाल दो, उसमें डाल दो, सब कुछ ठीक है. I don't deny that. But the thing is, आप इसमें डालो, savings में डालो, high earning savings में डालो, does not make any difference. The only thing is, both of them should be accessible. In liquid also, it is accessible. You get the money on the second day. In your savings also, it is accessible to you in any ways. So don't chase returns in such amounts, especially emergency. So this is the reason actually. I told you to keep that over there. कि चल return भी कमा रहा तो what is wrong in that? You shouldn't keep it at home. कि घर में सजा के रखो 5, 7, 10 लाख रुपया, whatever is your emergency fund. वो घर में मत रखो, वो घर में depreciation में जा रहा है, वो value में decrease हो रहा है. Remember those things. Then the gold jewelry. We all love the yellow metal. We all know, and it started centuries ago. And everyone has good amount of gold ornaments and jewelries. Obviously, जो घर में gold jewelry होती है, which has an emotional value as well. अब वो घर में पड़ी-पड़ी कोई return थोड़ा ना दे रही है. Yes, it is usually over the historical period, it is going above in value. There is no doubt about that. But then people like to show off their gold, but gold is not earning as such any interest. So we don't want to do that also for our emotional value related jewelry, especially if it is someone's marriage jewelry or any other similar occasion jewelry. So people don't associate with that. So purchasing about physical gold and all those things we discussed great depth in the gold webinar, which comes online next Sunday, 27th of June. Remember to watch that, because this is one session which was a big hit with all of you. So I've discussed all of these aspects over there, but the bottom line is that whatever the gold, the physical gold, the jewelry that you have, which you are fond of wearing and flaunting to your family, to your friend, to your relatives or whatever, you shouldn't be even bothered to, ये मेरा asset है, this is your asset class, but not earning you any interest. You shouldn't be bothered about earning interest on that. So then the fourth and the last aspect where the returns don't matter is life insurance or the term insurance plan. It is a security for your family. God forbid something happens to you, because untimely death can happen to anyone. We saw that in the COVID, especially the second wave. So many known people actually went for their heavenly abode. So remember, the golden rule always says never mix insurance with investment. Insurance का purpose insurance है. Investment के लिए और 36 instrument पड़े हैं. 7 तो है ना most common जो मैंने आपको दिए, उस 7 में ये तो नहीं आता ना. So why are you bothered about buying the money back plans or the endowment plans? Again, if you want to know more about them, there is a video already public on YouTube. Lots of life insurance policies, which one to choose. So you get all the information over there. So don't bother about returns in such case, but security. So not every investment, the conclusion is that not every investment that you make should be with an aim to earn high returns. You will win some, you will lose some. Portfolio का मतलब ही यही है. When we discussed 5 lakh breakup that day, कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट 7% वाली होंगी, कुछ 10 वाली होंगी, कुछ 12-15 वाली होंगी. बीच में बैलेंस करने के लिए गोल्ड होगा जो कभी कभी 8 देगा, कभी कभी 15 देगा, कभी कभी 12-13 भी देगा. It is a kind of a hedge which will balance out the things. So these are certain assets which can be bought for self-esteem and other self-possession as well. So returns should not matter, at least in these 4 kind of asset class that you have. The golden rule: never ever have a investment related to insurance. Sir, guaranteed income plan है, आपको life coverage इतना मिलेगा, and you will still get insurance on that. So that is not my cup of tea, of course, surely. So another aspect when we talk of investments, does the dollar value happen, or the rupee devaluation that happens, does that eat into the investments, or what effects does it has? For example, from 22nd May 2017 to calendar year 22nd May 2018, the rupee actually dollar fluctuation was 64 to 68, currently around 74, 75. So how the decline in rupee can affect your investments? You need to know this aspect in short about that. So we all know that the dollar and the rupee vary because of the variation in the oil prices. If you don't know, you can watch a recent movie on Amazon, Sandeep or Pinky Farrar. So she is the Sandeep Kaur Pariniti Chopra is a bank employee who's running from her job because of obvious reasons, and she gives a detailed breakup of how the dollar actually and the rupee does happen. So if you've not seen that movie, just for this one scene, do see that movie. If you want to learn it in an entertaining way as well, and have the carry home message on to you as well. So many other factors like the economic slowdown, they all will affect the Indian rupee. So I just read the news that the Dow Jones dropped 400 points. I'm not sure how much it will further drop as we finish the presentation. So yes, sometimes we will see a continuous fall, but कई बारी फिर ऊपर भी चले जाता कुछ पैसे. So in imports, what happens? Imports become costly. Inflation is also affected, but exports के लिए अच्छा है. Dollar ज़्यादा आएंगे बाहर से. So then consumers के लिए travel and education become more expensive because of the dollar cost. For us also in dentistry, most of the materials are imported. So again, our costing also goes up. So overall speaking, there are 4 impacts of the falling rupee other than your life, economic life, on your investments. We are focused only on investments here, your portfolio here. So what actually can happen? So your foreign stock investments, if some of your mutual funds are having an exposure in foreign say equity, then they'll become more profitable because rupee will depreciate, the foreign stocks will appreciate. इसमें 2 component आ गए ना, एक the foreign stock अगर perform अच्छा करे और currency movement. So it works in both the ways. So again, depreciation may not affect long-term portfolio if it is diversified. Diversification का मतलब ये है कि you actually mitigate the risks. You spread it out evenly. अगर सारा कुछ ही 15% वाली इन्वेस्टमेंट में डाला हुआ है तो you will move as the market moves. अगर मार्केट गिर गई है तो आपकी इन्वेस्टमेंट भी सारी गिर गई. अगर नहीं गिरी है, ऊपर गई है तो सारी ऊपर चलेगी. रिस्क फैक्टर तो है ही है ना. But yes, if it is balanced by a NPS or a PPF and a gold, then accordingly अगर ये गिर रहा है तो ये शायद ऊपर जाएंगे. When the stock market falls, gold goes up. We discussed in the gold webinar. So balancing कुछ ना, if not fully, कुछ ना कुछ aspect पे तो हो रही है ना. So that is the reason the diversification plays a role. You don't keep all eggs in one basket. That is the golden rule. So always don't bother about short-term fluctuations, especially if related to import and export business, or even in dentistry also. That happens. Then gold price decreases sometimes with appreciation in the dollar. It has an inverse effect usually. So you can invest in gold when the prices are low and make profits when the price go up. You need to understand those things. So gold can account for deficits also because the gold imports usually exceed the value of its exports. So the government will take action to reduce its import so that the balance in pricing can be brought about handsomely, equally. Then the bond yield increases. So when the rupee decreases, the bonds which are giving interest, they'll increase in value because they'll bring a lot of foreign institutional investors to our country, the FIIs, which are known as common in the stock market. So this is not actually a favorable situation for long-term debt funds because unki fir NAV, net asset value, will fall down. So again, bonds are one of the components of the ECG part in NPS also. The returns in NPS will also be affected. Then real estate also falls. जब ये devaluation होती है, inflation goes up. So RBI has to tweak in, and every quarter it tweaks the repo rate as well. Repo rate is basically the lending rate to the banks. So it shoots up the rates, so tries to actually lower the demand, which puts pressures on prices, which will actually decrease the demand and ultimately the holding power of builders also. So ultimately, real estate will go in a negative side in that sense. So rupee के कारण आपकी investments कहाँ गिर सकती हैं? You need to be aware of that. So again, those people who are actually local buyers who invest or people who have bought houses or property with EMIs, they'll be hit by the depreciated value because the loans will get expensive. RBI tweak करेगा अगर उनका repo rate से linked है, not with the otherwise their APR is not linked with otherwise that they're with the link with the repo rate, then their loans will also get expensive. So again, there is a huge series on loans in 3 parts, which is already there on YouTube. You want to discuss or know about each and every aspect of loans that affects us. The same series is on YouTube. You can watch that. So again, NRIs make a lot of money during such times because उनका purchase power बढ़ जाती है. So then the glittering portion, the gold. Should gold be a part of your portfolio? We discussed this part. Surely it should be because it is a hedge against inflation. I gave a lot of detail, but there are certain things new, so I wanted to add it over here pertaining to investments. So it actually is known to protect our portfolio against adverse movements in the stock market. As I said, the stock market goes down, the gold prices go up. So technically, it is like a strategic investment. So you can invest in paper gold, gold ETF, gold funds, all those options I've discussed in detail, even the various options that are available for physical as well. But then the physical comes with the hassle of storage, making charges, wastage, all those things. So the gold price movements actually influence their way in the market also. अब gold होना चाहिए, fine. कितना होना चाहिए? Most commonly, experts advise 10 to 15% of your portfolio towards gold, not beyond that. So you need to understand that it should not be exceeding that. You will not want कि अगर gold return दे रहा है तो हम लोग सारा कुछ ही gold में डाल दें. Even that will be a good, will not be a good approach to have actually. So yes, certain things will be there because stock market is inversely related to gold, and similarly we go about those tasks. So disciplined approach is required even for a gold, and it should be a part of your portfolio, even if you have an aggressive one. So rarely in the past we have seen cycles. I've gave you the 40-year record, 32 times it has grown in value, 8 times only annually it has grown down in value. At the time of my marriage in 2005, gold was at 5500 roughly. I remember that correctly because we bought it. So 15 years down, 16 years down the line, the gold is now, the gold actually touched 60 in August 2020 itself. So what a phenomenal growth it is having. So always look into those regards as per the growth part is there. So gold, you will say compared to equity, it may be giving you low return, but it actually will balance out those things since it is sometimes like an inflation beating instrument in a way, because it does make its presence felt when the stock markets start to correct itself a bit. So again, what are the guidelines that you have to see to allocate gold to your portfolio? A few of them I didn't give in that session because it was actually based on other as aspects of gold. So allocate the gold to your portfolio based on your financial goals. If you're done with the initial goals and the next goal is your kids' marriage, some of you might be close to 50 or 50 plus as well. So your next aim may be accordingly. So you can allocate gold as per your return wise or as per your requirements in your portfolio. And again, use it as a diversifying instrument, as a hedge, as a balancing thing. It is a good investment, even if you are a conservative investment. It rarely has a very huge risk out of that. Remember, this again was not a part of your 7 investments that I made, but yes, it still should be a 7+1 part of your investment. So always check gold price valuation when covered to other investments. So at least rebalancing your portfolio should be done at least once a year. If the market corrects, if you have decided at the, what does rebalancing actually mean? फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू हैव डिसाइडेड दैट मैं अपना 50% डालूंगा इक्विटी में, 50% डेट में डालूंगा. आई डोंट वांट टू रिस्क मच इन इक्विटी एंड आई आल्सो वांट टू कीप अ बैलेंस्ड अप्रोच कि डेट में मेरे को 7 या 8 मिल जाए, लेट्स सपोज कंजर्वेटिव साइड 6-7 मिल जाए, इक्विटी में मेरे को 13 मिल जाए. सो दैट अगर मैंने 50-50 भी डाला तो मेरी टोटल एवरेज वुड बी 13 + 7 डिवाइडेड बाय 2, 10%. आई एम स्टिल बीटिंग इन्फ्लेशन and I am happy with that. But after a year, you find that your allocation percentage has not shifted because of the valuation. अब आपका 60% equity में या 40 debt में है, then you will like to actually sell off some portion of the equity and rebalance it to debt. This is the way you actually do the rebalancing once a year. So that was, अब risk ये होता है ना, equity में हर वक्त growth नहीं होती है. You always get a downfall also. So sometimes if it downfalls, debt में उतना manage नहीं हुआ, उतना बैलेंस नहीं हुआ, तो ओवरऑल रिटर्न शायद 9-9.5 तक आ जाए. देन दैट इज द प्लेस where you should consider adding gold to your portfolio. If even if a correction happens in equity, the gold will more or less compensate for that, since your 100% is not allocated to equity, और 100% का focus 100% आपकी investment equity में नहीं है. And by equity I mean mutual funds here. I'm not discussing stock over here. So then focus on the correct allocation towards gold. If you have a suitable investment at appropriate time in your portfolio, you will always grow more. So that is the reason a 10 to 15% investment is ideally advisable in portfolio. So for example, if you have decided 10 to 15 is there and you allocate just 5%, sometimes that investment is insufficient to protect you against any kind of fall in equity. वो बैलेंसिंग के लिए, वो कहते हैं ना, बैलेंस करने के लिए अमाउंट भी तो उतना चाहिए ना, अमाउंट ही नहीं उतना है गोल्ड का. So that is where the problem comes. Then we need to protect our portfolio from a global crisis as well. We all saw economy slowing down considerably because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But then gold allocation के कारण ही stock markets corrected badly. Yes, they recovered. They had a V-shaped recovery, and almost by November or December 2020, all the pre-2000 January 2020 levels were reached in less than 9 months. But remember, markets कहीं भी थी, gold 42 से 60 पहुंच गया in August. And people actually made, hey, a couple of my group members only messaged me, sir मेरी शादी का gold पड़ा है and gold is now touching 60, so I have a few loans, अभी मेरी income भी stopped है, should I consider selling off the gold to actually pay off my loans and my EMIs? I said yes, why not, go ahead. Asset का मतलब ही होता है कि जरूरत के टाइम पे काम आए. Sell it off. And trust me, those two people sold off their gold, whatever they wanted to. They had no emotional value attached to that. They said, we want to be get rid of the liabilities first. And they thanked me at least a zillion times. I would say that. So they are both in the group itself. I won't mention their identity, of course. But this is the scenario. The assets are meant to protect you against the hard times as well. They come handy. It's not always meant to grow. Sometimes you have an unexpected emergency in life. Then you maybe need to switch over from those situations. Remember, if you had an equity and it had been growing, but COVID struck and actually the growth almost went to a say 2018 level in terms of return. And if you had withdrawn at that time, एक तो आपको value कम मिलनी थी, then your purpose of staying invested for long time was a cross. And then even if you took it out, you again would have to start from zero again, losing out on the biggest variant time. So इसमें आपने क्या यूज किया है, hedge या balancing thing या gold, इसलिए उसकी percentage 10 to 15 चाहिए, ताकि वो इतना अमाउंट तो हो ना कम से कम कि आपको कुछ दे सके. So this is the reason sometimes I always insist on investing in gold, and it is one of my favorite investments as well, of course, in today's times, digital gold surely. So let's wind up the session with the little bit summary points, a couple of summary points and a few carry home gyan points, and we are well on course to finish the session on time within the time slot of 90 minutes. So when I ask my friends or group members or colleagues why they haven't yet invested their money, so I receive replies, once I open my clinic फिर करूंगा, once I get married फिर करूंगा, once I settle kids फिर करूंगा, बच्चों को स्कूल भेज दूं फिर करूंगा, या मैं सिर्फ थोड़ा सा ही पैसा डाल सकता हूँ, या पैसा बचता कहाँ है. सो अगेन वट एवर दे से, एक क्वेश्चन बहुत कॉमन रहता है, एक बात बता, अगर मैं करूंगा तो मैं करोड़पति बन जाऊंगा, मैं लखपति बन जाऊंगा? The answer is yes, surely. So investment is not a core, is not a work, is not a daily thing. It should be a daily habit. It should be a part of your system. And once it becomes a habit, it can then only make someone a millionaire. So your investing journey starts with a plan and a time frame. Time is the biggest variant everywhere. Even if you go for the marketing, we discussed KPIs in the morning. The time bound thing. The smart criteria also mentions smart time as time bound thing. You can, when you have the time span, you can measure against a set preset benchmark. So it does not matter how much you are returning, but if how it does matter how much returning in how much time, because that only will give you an absolute return in that sense. So then learn about how the markets work, figure out what strategy is best for you, and determine what kind of a investor you are. थोड़ा सा इन्वेस्ट करके देखिए 10,000, अगर डूब गया सारा का सारा तो आपको कितना हार्ट अटैक आता है. अगर नहीं आता है तो आपका रिस्क पोटेंशियल उस हिसाब से. अकॉर्डिंगली टेक रिस्क और नॉट as per your profile and as per your situation. We mentioned about various factors today. So be careful who you take advice from or how you take action. Do you take it on hearsay? Are you which behavioral style you belong to? We discussed 5 styles in the previous session. So always be mindful of your previous prejudices and assumptions, and as you can find right path for you. So remember, it is a long term journey. So don't get tripped by short term setbacks. छोटे मोटे झटके लगेंगे. Market हमेशा up down जाएगी. Don't bother when the fund value goes down. Always stay open and learn from your mistakes, because the most successful investors were not made in one day. So learn the ins and outs of the financial world and your personality. And as an investor, take your time and patience. Don't use trial and error. Always learn from others' mistakes. It is absolutely free of cost. So I hope you are not too tired or too hungry. Just a couple of slides, and let's wind up then. So the carry home gyan for today, the rules for financial freedom. Your rent mortgage, usually applicable to Western countries, European countries, should be less than what you make in a week. There they get paid for a week salary. Then only borrow money to make more money. Again, this is a approach which we don't follow in Indian scenarios. So as your income increases, your cost of living should stay the same. So they follow different kind of culture. So what is the carry home gyan for today? When we hear success stories of our role models, people who inspire us, we actually want to motivate their footsteps. But then do not blindly copy them, because sometimes their situation might be different from yours. So there are a lot of investment options, and out of those 7 currently, mutual funds are amongst the best. So I've given you a ready-made recipe for that. Mutual funds are suitable for all types of investors, wealthy, pauper, middle road, whatever you can say. So what suits one will not necessarily suit another sometimes. Though the choice of fund may be good, but the timing of your entry might not be. Dr. Bhavdeep को fund ने 8 times, 4 times दिया है, तो मेरे को कम से कम 2 times तो देगा in next 4 years. Not necessarily. It depends upon timing of your entry also. It depends upon what amount also you are putting in. My amount would have been more. That is why I got the additional advantage of compounding also. So what are the main secrets? Patience and the right approach. Patience is otherwise also required in dentistry, and it is required in tons and tons, surely, because we all know जब किसी दांत की रूट फ्रैक्चर होती है तो क्या चाहिए होता है apart from instruments? Your patience, nothing else. So there are so many false beliefs and myths about investing, but successful investors have to ignore all these and concentrate on what actually is important. So we have all have that one friend जिसने वो स्टॉक मार्केट से पैसा बना के या फैंसी कार या फोन खरीदा होता है. बोलता है यार ट्रेडिंग बहुत अच्छी चीज है यार, डाल दे, तू भी पैसा डाल दे, मैं तेरे को बताऊंगा, मैंने देखा भी कार ली नहीं. So then it sometimes does not end well, and it creates a fear of all other investments as well. Remember, out of 7, this is one of those 7, not all 7. So not all 7 are risky. We discussed the risk profiles as well, along with their return potential and their potential to beat inflation as well. I discussed those, gave you those charts as well. So for beginners, I suggest trading in mutual funds than stocks, because stocks is whatever you say, it is a full-time job. जितना मर्जी बोल दो, दिन में 2 घंटे लगाने. वो MLM मार्केटिंग वाले भी बोलते हैं ना, एमबे वाले, टप्परवेयर वाले, वो सब बोलते हैं सिर्फ दिन में 2 घंटे you'll get a fixed income. Ultimately वो लगता है कि सारा दिन में 24 घंटे भी कम है. So stock market is a full-time job, but mutual funds you can still act passively also, even actively also. You don't need to be continuously tracking it. Market ऊपर जाए नीचे जाए उससे कोई फर्क नहीं है. You'll ultimately gain in the longer run, and the SIP is the best way to go about it. So there is a chance that sometimes, even after good knowledge, good system, our decisions can go wrong. But that is the reason I suggest at least start investing in our late 20s or early 30s, so that you still have that beautiful thing, time, even if something goes wrong. Remember, time is such a beautiful thing. It gives you compounding. It gives you time. It gives you a space to make mistakes again. It gives you space to learn, relearn, unlearn, and those things do again. It gives you actually a control over yourself. It gives you a control over your universe, what you are living in. So investment is not a destination. It is a journey. That is the reason I started FIJ, and I urge everyone to start their journey as early as possible, as early as today itself. So all you need is the discipline. अब किसका ऑडियो भाई? थोड़ा सा यार आप सेंसिबल हो जाओ यार, इसमें कहने की जरूरत नहीं पड़नी चाहिए. You should be someone speaking and you are unmuting yourself and your family goes are visible. Please, discipline इस चीज में नहीं है तो आप फाइनेंशियल में कहाँ से लाओगे? So investment is not a destination, it is a journey. That is the reason I started FIJ. So I urge all of you to start your journey as early as today. So all you need is just that one thing, discipline and dedication to keep focused on investing. So if you are investing for longer durations, and don't panic by your knee-jerk reactions or short-term movements in the market, you all and we all can be successful investor in the right direction and discipline. So happy investing to all of you. So thank you so much. So this is the moral of the whole story for today. Invest in yourself. Should include mind, body, health, your happiness, your relationships, your passions and your dreams, your business and your wealth. In short, yourself. Invest in yourself. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. So this is my YouTube channel link. I'm posting videos every week. So go to YouTube, search Dr. Bhavdeep Ahuja. I was shocked actually to find someone in group 1 asking कि Dr. Bhavdeep का YouTube का channel का link क्या है. I was like about to bang my head in the wall. रोज link डालने के बाद ये हाल है. अगर आपने बरसों के बाद WhatsApp group खोला है, I'm not to be blamed for that reason. So this is my email and website. You can get in touch with me. Most of you already are. So the session happened today on this page. It was a surprise for some. Yes, so many of you got the link itself because you posted your feedback. And if you continue to do so, maybe who knows, you're lucky the next time as well. So all my social media presence by my name only, Dr. Bhavdeep. So my WhatsApp groups, if you want to be added, someone just message me, sir, मेरे को group में डालो. मेरे को number आपका दिखा नहीं वहाँ पे. It is visible on the screen. So kindly note it if you want to be added or want a colleague to be added, you can. So do send me your feedback in the WhatsApp group. Bookers and brickbats both would be welcome in equal measure. If you had something to learn, yes, I know the people who are aware of such things, who are experienced people, they might have found all these things repetitive, but especially for the newcomers or even the middle road, there must have been many things to learn from this. So thank you once again, and I stop my share for the questions from you, if any. Firstly, I'll pick up from the chat and then I will take up live from all of you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. So yes, I hope I answered the Dr. Sethi about tier 2 of NPS. Young investors, yes, I answered that, Shripal, I hope. Viral sir asks, should we shift PPF investment to NPS? I mean, 2 lakh to NPS. So you can do so. If your total portfolio is, let's suppose your investment maybe 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 lakhs in the year, you can shift that. But still, PPF should be there. PPF should be there as an investment, what I believe. It is giving separate benefits. NPS is still a market-linked instrument, and PPF is one investment which is totally tax-free. So look into those aspects as well. It has its own sets of advantages. Maybe it is giving you less, but someone who is investing just about 2 to 3 lakhs, he should think कि मैं PPA में डालूं कि ना डालूं, equity में डालूं, सारा डालूं, depending upon the percentage. But people like you who are settled, and I know you must be putting in a higher amount as well. You should put in, maybe you want to put in, you can put in about 10% of your gross income in the NPS also. So if your gross income is 20 lakhs, you can put in 2 lakhs in NPS also for the year. You can put in 1.5 in the PPF also for that year. So considering looking at the overall investment of 8 to 9 lakhs per year, in that term I'm answering, not in terms of someone who is investing just 3 to 4 lakhs in that sense. Thank you, Dr. Vanna. Mutual fund with a manager, I'm to start with monthly SIP from now. Any guidance on that? What should I go for? Again, you want the list of funds? I've given that already many a times. I'll still provide you with the list in the group. Don't worry. So any more queries from any one of you? More than happy to answer.
Sir, you have told about the tax regime in NPS Tier 2. Can you please repeat that?
Tier 2 has undergone a change. Earlier, it used to be like a savings bank account. Now, Tier 2 works exactly like a Tier 1 account. It is like a similar investment like Tier 1. The only thing is there is no lock-in period. You can take out the money as and when you want. Of course, there's tax implications surely, but otherwise you can take it out anytime as you want.
Sir, simultaneously we can put in both the accounts.
You can put in both the account. There are actually आप NPS में जब डालते हैं ना, तो आपका जो money is entered on T+2. The day you transact, अगर आपने 330 से पहले डाला तो आपका T+2 जाएगा. अगर आपने 330 के बाद डाला तो आपका एक तरह से T+3 जाएगा वर्किंग डे के हिसाब से, because आपका वर्किंग डे अगला बन गया automatically. And if you put it on a Friday, that amount will enter as T on Monday, and you're visible on Wednesday only in your portfolio in that sense. So this can work. इसमें दो चीजें होती हैं. You can opt for a T+0 also. D-remit account activate करना होता है. You can go on the NPS side. You can activate your D-remit for the same day remit, or there is a way you can put in some extra amount in Tier 2 account, and from there you can transfer to Tier 1 as well.
Okay.
That is also possible. Okay, one thing you mentioned gives almost 10%. Please tell. I mentioned 60 and 40 करके मैंने average 10 निकाली थी. 13 plus 7 divided by 2. It is almost 10%. For equity, 100% equity exposure, that was a presumption made by me, Dr. Deepak. So how much correction in the market do you expect now further? I expect a lot correction in July, sir. June has come as a surprise. I was not expecting this thing in June, which is happening since the past 2-3 days. I expected, but ultimately the markets recovered up pretty well today, considering the levels they were. Actually the BSE ended 21 plus, and probably NSE was a little bit negative, and mid cap, which was at one point of time 600 negative points today, ended up just about 200 something negative in today's market. But yes, I expect these to be recovered, but forecast is there that the correction by 5 to 8% would happen in July. Yes, but then nobody can time the market. Only two people can tell exactly about the market, and those two people are the liar and the God. So liars can tell about the market correctly, and God can tell about. No one else can actually tell about the market. So Dr. Krishan Priya says, I'm in my late 20s. I just started my family life and also started my own practice recently. I have my parents' debt running on my shoulder, so I can't invest much right now. But if I try settle all my debts and all, so then probably I would lose my time, the most valuable thing. Can I give me a few tips to overcome this situation? A simple thing would be take a loan from your parents, pay off your debt, and pay slowly back to your parents at 0%. But remember, your loan should be having a foreclosure option with you. अगर आप foreclosure नहीं कर सकते तो then there will be no option of closing it. Foreclosure means closing it early than what you want. So that is the best situation. Take a loan from your parents at 0% if they can give you easily without burdening themselves or without putting a pressure. They won't refuse their girls, of course, but sometimes they will unduly put the pressure. But remember, always return them back, don't pay them interest, and start investing, start using the time advantage in whatever way you can. You can still put in more amount, because what you're paying to bank is your principal plus interest. What you will be paying to your parents is just the principal. So remember, the interest portion can be transferred smartly to your investment part. If you're investing small amount, you deduct your interest and add that, you'll be still getting or putting in more amount. Remember, in the Sudhir and Dheer example, I gave you an example of 2,000 rupees per month for so many years. He just did it for 10 years. Imagine the kind of amount, if you remember the previous session. So this is the one of the shortest way that I can advise you, which way you can actually have a win-win situation both on hand. Or else, if you don't want to burden your parents, is try to actually balance out in a way from your husband partially, that try to make your EMIs bigger, try to make your loan span shorter, and simultaneously maybe you can borrow some money from your husband again at 0% to invest in for your future. And I believe those kind of things can come handy from our routine family members as well, surely. So I hope you got your answer, Dr. Krishna Priya. Thank you, Dr. Sonali. How to select a mutual fund company as everyone has similar funds? Sir, बहुत कुछ available. Just wait for 30th June. You'll get 15 videos, short videos, kind of a 1.5 hour webinar on that only. If you watch in continuity, in sequence, the key only would be to watch all those in sequence. If you watch in sequence, by the end of the day on 30th June, those who don't know about mutual funds will have a lot to learn from mutual funds on that day. So just wait, have patience for 12 days. You'll surely get good knowledge on that. Thank you, Dr. Poonam ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Krishna Priya. Okay, Raghu. Yes, FIJ is a journey we all need to. Thank you, Dr. Rajni. Thank you, Dr. Raghu. Any more queries? आज श्रीपाल चुप है, श्रीपाल की क्वेरी नहीं आई, या तो कुछ और कर रहा है. श्रीपाल, कुछ कर रहे हो कि? Okay. Dr. Pramod asks, is it a good time to invest in gold, Bs, etc.? We are anticipating correction in equity. It is not. The gold is not bought on anticipation, because gold is, again, your portfolio. If it does not have 10 to 15%, then you can utilize this option. But if it is already having that, then buying it on speculation is not going to give you good results. If you have surplus money, you can buy even more of equity when the markets correct itself. Remember, equity will still give you more return than gold most of the times, majority of the times. So when it is a correction time, you should invest more in equity rather, because correction is the time when the markets are falling. You'll get more units, you'll buy more. And when the growth happens, they'll actually give you good results. So this is the thing. Don't look at gold in that sense. When the markets are correcting, buy more equity. So Dr. Deepak mentions, how can we at least have rough idea of the market? As you just mentioned, you were expecting a fall in July so that we can protect capital. Remember, if you are a new investor, then only there is a risk of capital being eroded. And capital erosion happens only in the stocks, not in mutual funds usually. Mutual fund में होता है जो growth हुई थी वो zero पे आ जाती है, थोड़ी सी negative. इतनी भी correct नहीं होएंगी ना कि आपको बिल्कुल ही negative में या zero पे चला जाए. That happened in March, April 2020. So again, that is my speculation. And I told you after that, two people who can do correctly is the liar and the God. So I'm not God, of course. So trust me to be a liar in this regard. कि जो मैं कह रहा हूँ झूठ कह रहा हूँ, मान के चलो. So maybe my predictions could come wrong, and I'll be more than happy if they come wrong. So thank you, Dr. Ashish. Thank you, Dr. Rakhi. Is it prudent to start tier 2 NPS account at 50 years of age? At present, I only have tier 1 account. Ma'am, I don't see much advantage in a tier 2 account because of the tax implications itself. You might not gain much because it is meant to be for a short-term period only. So I myself have not still activated my tier 2, and I don't see any advantage, major advantage in doing so. You can still do it at any stage. If you can activate a tier 1 at 65, you can activate a tier 2 as well at any age above 65, of course. So the last age to start NPS in today's times is 65. So you can do that also. So not an issue, but I don't see any major advantage in starting a tier 2 account that is. Thank you all. What shall be exit strategy for MF for a person age 50 or plus? Dr. Pramod, then I think you did not attend the previous session. It was discussed in a lot detail in the query part. So visit the query section whenever the session is there. There are different criteria I have given, how to exit, when to exit. So you'll get the answer over there. Thank you, Dr. Madhvi. How much percentage of portfolio should be allocated for real estate, like own commercial shop to second house to earn rent? I believe the real estate should again not be beyond 10 to 15% of the portfolio in the longer run. In the bigger picture, if we talk, people would have, because again, that is one asset that is in doldrums since past 5-6 years now. It's not giving very good returns. If we talk about that, yes, exceptions aside, but otherwise not. But something to because it has more of a liability also in terms of maintenance, also in terms of other regulations also, which are being tightened by the government as well. So if you have money to spare and if you already allocated that, then free to go ahead. But if you are willing to start that investment in that, I would actually deter you from going in that sector currently in the real estate in present times. So that is my answer, Dr. Abhijit. Okay, I have a query on FB page. Dr. Vrinda Dentist asks, sir, can anything be done with gold jewelry lying at home? Dr. Vrinda, I mentioned treat it like an asset class. If you don't have any emotional value attached to it, and if you want to reap profits when the times are low and the gold is at a high, you can reap profits from that. Or alternatively, because gold is one asset, when you try to break it, remake it, you will have making, breaking, wastage, and polish charges all included. And trust me, they're as high as sometimes 30% as well. So there is a lot of gold wasted in that. But if you are done with your jewelry, you can sell your digital jewelry or sell your physical jewelry and maybe buy a digital gold, which will give you a lock-in period, like something like a SGB. Will give you a good return also, and comes with a lock-in period and gives you over and above the additional interest. So watch the gold session, which comes 27 June live for you. So you can get benefited from that. Next Sunday, it will be there live. Yes, any more queries? Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Dr. Harshada. Thank you, Dr. Bhavna. Any more queries that you want to ask? Okay, Dr. Vrinda, you got your answer. Thank you so much. Okay, if there are no queries, then we call it a day. So guys, I'll inform you, we usually have our Friday Chai Pe Charcha on finance topic in the paid group. So do post your feedback and takeaways in the WhatsApp group. And who knows, you win a ticket to the next session as well. Because usually I'm very liberal in the last 15-30 days of the paid group. So these are last 12 days going on. So Dr. Kanaga asks, if our total portfolio value fluctuates along with market fluctuations, should it reflect in our balance sheet? Yes, surely, sir. If we take it as a yearly value, if your yearly gains are there, losses are there, accordingly, your balance sheet will reflect that, because then your ITR will change. For self-employed people, if you are filing ITR 4, you will have to shift to ITR 3. That is the way you actually deal with balance sheet scenario. Balance sheet would still be made whether it is ITR 3 or ITR 4. So both gains and losses. And trust me, you don't need to worry about this part no longer, because the new IT site is already online, although with a few glitches. And trust me, all those ITRs will now come with pre-filled losses and gains. So you don't need to bother about. So many, even the income tax department is offering a free ITR filing as well. So trust me, so many CAs will lose their job. Not their job exactly, but because they have already so many things you can say on their hand, especially the GST. They're too occupied with those things. you take care. Dr. Vrinda asks you take care of doctors' portfolios too. Yes, Dr. Vrinda, I am doing portfolio analysis for 2 colleagues currently also, and 3 colleagues are in line for portfolio analysis in the first week of in July. And luckily, out of 2 of them are right now in this Zoom session as well. Of course, I won't name them for the obvious reasons, but yes, I'm due for both of them in the next month. I do that individually and in detailed manner. I guide them in a proper way that what they can do. It is done over the Zoom sessions in spread over 3 to 4 to 5 sessions sometime. Of course, it is paid and chargeable, surely. So then these are done. If any wants to, because I don't promote it as a service, because I already have my hands full with so many things. So those only who request me, I only oblige them. But yes, at a cost, surely. Okay, anything more you want to ask, or we don't call it a day? Dr. Vrinda, I won't inform you. You ask me whenever you want to do. I'll let you know whether I have the time at that time or not, whether I'll schedule it at a later stage. I'll do that. Don't worry. No worries. You can go about portfolio analysis with me. Don't worry. Okay, guys. Thank you then. Take care. Do post your take home points to motivate others on this financial investment journey on what you have learned. Whichever group you are, do post your takeaways and your feedback. And if you have anything to learn from today's session, in addition to the previous session. So thank you so much. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And till the next session, be happy, and always stay happy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
night.
Same to
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir. Good night.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
Good
thank
night.
you.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.